Everywhere you look, crosswalks are supposed to mean safety. White stripes on the pavement, a signal that this is where people can walk without fear. They were created to protect pedestrians, to organize chaos, and to make streets feel fair for everyone. But over time, something strange happened. Even as crosswalks spread across cities, pedestrian deaths kept rising. In the United States, they've climbed to the highest level in 4 decades. So how did one of the simplest safety tools in urban design become part of the problem? And why do the very markings meant to protect us sometimes make walking more dangerous? When you see a crosswalk, you probably assume you're safer there than anywhere else on the street. The paint tells drivers to slow down, and it gives pedestrians a sense of protection. But the reality is very different. In America, pedestrian fatalities have increased by more than 75% since 2010, even as more cities add crosswalks, flashing signs, and don't walk lights. In 2023 alone, more than 7,300 pedestrians were killed, the highest number since the early 1980s. The pattern isn't just random. Studies show that many crashes happen at or near crosswalks, places that were supposed to be safe. It's a disturbing contradiction. The more we tried to separate cars and people, the more dangerous the meeting points between them became. To understand why, we need to look at where crosswalks came from, what they were originally designed to do, and how that purpose slowly changed as cities built themselves around cars. Before cars ruled city streets, people could walk almost anywhere. Roads were shared spaces, messy, slow, and human. Children played in them, markets spilled onto them, and horses moved carefully through crowds. There was no need for crosswalks because everyone moved at the same pace. That changed in the early 1900s when automobiles began flooding American cities. Cars were fast, heavy, and unforgiving. Pedestrian deaths skyrocketed. By the 1920s, newspapers were filled with stories about motor killings, and public anger toward drivers was enormous. To shift the blame, car manufacturers and traffic engineers launched public campaigns to change how people thought about streets. They introduced a new word, jaywalking, to describe anyone who crossed outside the designated area. Posters, cartoons, and even school lessons taught that stepping into the road without permission was reckless. The streets that once belonged to everyone were now for cars first, and for people only when allowed. By the 1930s and 40s, crosswalks were painted across every major city, paired with signals that managed when pedestrians could move. The goal wasn't just safety, it was control. Roads became predictable for drivers, and pedestrians were confined to a few painted spaces. Crosswalks weren't designed to make walking safer. They were designed to make traffic flow smoother. That philosophy, that safety depends on obedience, not environment, still defines much of urban planning today. Crosswalks seem simple, painted lines meant to organize movement, but they do something deeper. They influence how people behave, and often in opposite ways for drivers and pedestrians. When pedestrians see a crosswalk, they tend to feel protected. The markings suggest that cars will stop, and that this is a safe place to walk. But for drivers, those same markings signal something different, that pedestrians belong there, not elsewhere. Outside those painted lines, they drive faster and pay less attention. This is called risk compensation, when people change their behavior based on how safe they think they are, not how safe they actually are. Crosswalks create a sense of security that can disappear the moment traffic doesn't cooperate. Design itself reinforces this psychology. Drivers constantly read visual cues without realizing it. Wide lanes, clear sight lines, and smooth corners all send a subconscious message. This is a place to go fast. When streets are narrowed, trees line the edge, or the pavement changes texture, that same instinct tells drivers to slow down. These subtle signals often influence behavior more effectively than signs or laws ever could. In many cities, crosswalks are placed on wide, high-speed roads meant for vehicles, not people. The paint might be new, the signs might flash, but the environment still tells drivers that speed is normal. A painted crosswalk cannot fix a street designed for momentum. In contrast, cities that slow vehicles down with narrower lanes, raised crossings, or tighter corners see far fewer pedestrian crashes, even when there are fewer crosswalks. Physical design changes behavior more effectively than paint ever could. You can see how design philosophy changes outcomes just by comparing cities. In Tokyo, crosswalks are everywhere, but the difference is the environment around them. Streets are narrow, corners are tight, and speed limits are low. Drivers expect people at every intersection. That expectation changes behavior. Pedestrian deaths in Japan are a fraction of those in the United States, even with similar population density in major cities. Amsterdam takes a different approach. Many intersections don't rely on painted lines at all. Instead, raised crossings, curbs, and textured pavement make the space feel shared. Drivers instinctively slow down, and people walking or cycling move confidently because the entire street communicates caution. London offers yet another model. Decades ago, the city realized that crosswalks alone couldn't guarantee safety. In response, it introduced a mix of raised tables, curb extensions, and controlled crossings known as zebra and pelican crossings. These aren't just painted lines, they're elevated, well-lit platforms that physically force vehicles to slow down. Combined with strict speed enforcement and constant pedestrian visibility campaigns, they've helped London steadily reduce fatalities, even as traffic volumes grow. Now compare that to Los Angeles or Phoenix. There, crosswalks often stretch across 6-lane roads with speed limits over 40 miles per hour. The markings are clear, but the physics are not in anyone's favor. A pedestrian struck at that speed has less than a 50-50 chance of surviving. These examples show the same truth. Paint alone doesn't protect people. It's the context around it, the street width, traffic speed, and design cues that determine whether a crossing is safe or dangerous. Numbers reveal how big the problem really is. In the United States, pedestrian deaths have climbed steadily for more than a decade. In 2009, about 4,100 pedestrians were killed in traffic crashes. By 2023, that number had risen to over 7,300, an increase of nearly 80%. Studies from the Federal Highway Administration show that a large share of these crashes happen at intersections or near marked crosswalks. In many cases, pedestrians had the right of way, but drivers either didn't see them in time or couldn't stop at higher speeds. Another study by the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety found that marked crosswalks on wide, multi-lane roads can actually increase the risk of crashes when there are no other safety measures like raised platforms, signals, or curb extensions. The reason is simple. Drivers in one lane stop while others keep going, creating blind spots for anyone crossing. Meanwhile, countries that design slower, more predictable streets, like Sweden, the Netherlands, and Japan, consistently report fewer pedestrian fatalities per capita. Their approach doesn't rely on paint alone, but on design cues that make every driver aware that they're in shared space. The data suggests that the presence of a crosswalk isn't what determines safety. The design of the entire street does. Crosswalks don't just reflect engineering, they also reveal a country's attitude toward walking. In the United States, roads are designed primarily for cars. Pedestrians are treated as guests who must cross quickly and only in certain places. This mindset is written into law. Jaywalking is a crime in most states. And crossing outside the lines can lead to fines, even when no cars are nearby. Europe and Japan take a different approach. There, the legal and cultural assumption favors the person on foot. Drivers are expected to anticipate pedestrians, not the other way around. In many places, if a crash happens in a crosswalk, the driver is presumed at fault unless proven otherwise. This simple shift changes how everyone behaves. American cities have tried to improve safety with flashing beacons, push buttons, and countdown signals. But these fixes often treat symptoms rather than causes. Wide roads and fast traffic remain the norm, and crosswalks become small pockets of safety surrounded by danger. Culture plays a role too. In many US suburbs, walking isn't part of daily life, so drivers aren't used to seeing people in the street. In dense European or Asian cities, drivers expect it. Awareness is built into the rhythm of traffic itself. The contrast shows that safety is not just about markings or rules. It's about priorities, whether a street is designed for movement or for life. Crosswalks were meant to bring order to chaos, but they also changed how cities think about safety. Instead of slowing cars, we slowed people. Instead of redesigning dangerous roads, We painted lines across them and called it progress. That mindset created what many planners now describe as the illusion of safety. Paint cannot stop a speeding car or protect someone from impact. Yet for decades, cities have relied on markings and signals to do what design should have done from the start. In a way, the crosswalk became a symbol of misplaced trust, a visual promise that streets were shared fairly, even when everything around them said otherwise. Drivers learned to expect pedestrians only in marked spaces. Pedestrians learned to wait for permission to cross roads that once belonged to everyone. The safest streets in the world don't depend on faith in paint. They work because speed is controlled, visibility is clear, and human mistakes are anticipated. When those principles guide how a city is built, crosswalks become reminders of respect, not boundaries of risk. Real safety isn't about telling people where to walk. It's about designing streets where walking anywhere doesn't feel like taking a chance. Crosswalks were created to make walking safer, but over time they've come to symbolize something else: how cities often choose appearance over change. We draw lines, install signals, and call it safety, even when the danger around those lines never really changes. The truth is, safety can't just be painted on. What saves lives isn't the marking beneath our feet, but the space that surrounds it, the speed of cars, the width of roads, and the priorities of those who design them. Cities like Tokyo, Amsterdam, and London show that safety isn't about where people cross, but how they're treated when they do. When every part of a street, from lane width to lighting, tells drivers to slow down, the need for crosswalks as barriers begins to fade. The crosswalk will always be a part of city life, but maybe it's time to rethink what it stands for. True safety isn't created by warning people where to walk. It's built when every step, anywhere, feels like it belongs.